Hey, my name is Eric Pretender. I want to thank you for watching today's video. In today's video, we're going to talk about 10 ways that you can... Oh, hold on a second. Oh. Do not want to talk to that person. So, it's actually interesting that person called right now, because in today's video, we're going to talk about 10 ways to get your dog to come back to you. And the one thing that you don't want your dog to do is to ignore your call, like I just ignored that call. What I'm going to share with you are some tips that I've kind of observed and used over the years to improve the recall in my dogs and the clients that I help. Some of these tips you've probably heard before, and some of you maybe never heard before, but they're all very important. So let's get started. Tip number 1, your dog, in order for them to get good at coming back to you, your dog has to have a sense of freedom. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't think about when it comes to teaching the dog to come when called. We think we got to call them, give them a treat, and do all those types of things. But really, there's some underlying problems sometimes. Your dog lives a very restricted life. Most dogs do. They live the majority of their time in a house, in a crate, in a car, on a leash, behind a fence, right? Very restricted life. When they get some freedom, the last thing they want to do is come running back to the owner. So if you want your dog to get good at coming back to you, you need to start letting your dog have some freedom. But how do you let your dog have some freedom if they don't come back to you? This is where a long line comes in. I'm a big fan of using 20, 30-foot long lines. I attach them to the dog, let them just drag the line around. And this way I can just let them be a dog and start to develop that sense of freedom. That's what you need to do with your dog. Let the dog just drag the line around. Don't call them. Don't tell them no sniff. Don't tell them to stop doing things. Just let them do what they want to do. And as your dog develops a sense of freedom, you're going to see that coming back to you is not such a difficult thing to teach the dog. So sense of freedom is the first tip that I can give you. Second tip that I have for you, your dog needs to be tuned into you, right? Your dog has to be kind of paying attention and wondering what you're doing. Right now I have my dog Sky out here, right off camera a little bit. The whole time she's checking in with me. Right now she's just kind of looking around. But if I started walking in the other direction, she would immediately tune into me and she'd start following me. If I was to duck behind a tree or a rock or something like that, she would start coming for me, looking for me. And I wouldn't have to say anything to her. I wouldn't have to call her. I wouldn't have to say, Sky. I wouldn't have to do any of that stuff. The thing that she would do, she would come looking for me because she's kind of tuned in. She wants to be with me. And this is what you need to do with your dogs. You need to see if the dog is tuned into you. And again, we talked about the long line in the last tip. So with the long line on your dog, you can have the dog cruising around, and then, with the long line right there, see if you can duck behind something. See if your dog comes and looks for you. See if you walk the other way. See if your dog turns around and comes back to you without even you calling them. So your dog being tuned into you and wanting to be with you is very important when it comes to getting them to come back to you when you call them. If you're not, then you're just never really going to get your dog good at coming to you. So the first thing is your dog has to develop that sense of freedom. The other thing is you have to see if your dog's kind of watching you and interested in what you're doing. If you're not, then you need to work on that bonding better with your dog. You do some training with them. You need to do some relationship work, because your dog should want to be with you more than anybody else. On to tip number 3. This is a big one. When it comes to training a dog, I'm going to back up for a second. Dog training is a very confusing subject. It's not, but it seems that way. You get a new dog, you go on the internet, you watch some YouTube videos, you check out some articles on Google, you buy some books, you talk to your vet, talk to your friends. The next thing you know, you have all this conflicting information. Do I do this? Do I say that? Do I use treats? Do I not use treats? Do I say no to my dog? It's very confusing if you're a new dog owner. I've been there. You're like, I don't know what to do. And so I'm going to boil it down for you. Dog training it's simple. It seems like it's complex and confusing, but really what it comes down to is reinforcement and punishment, okay? And I know punishment is a very touchy subject, but I'm going to explain that if you don't understand punishment, you may never get your dog to come back to you. It's not that we use punishment to get the dog to come back to us. It's that we may be punishing the dog without even realizing it. So what we have is we have reinforcement and we have punishment. Reinforcement increases behavior. So if I want the dog to do a behavior, sit, lie down, come when called, I'm going to use reinforcement to increase the chances of those behaviors getting stronger. If I need the dog to stop doing a behavior, we use punishment. So the dog jumping, chewing, digging, whatever, we use punishment to stop those behaviors. So here's the thing. Punishment, you can apply it intentionally, right? You do something to the dog, Or you could do it unintentionally, meaning you don't even realize you're punishing your dog. So a typical scenario works like this. The dog goes to the beach or the field for the first time with you, and you let them off leash because they're doing pretty good, and they're cruising around and they're having a great time, and you're hanging out for about an hour, and then it's time to go. So you say, Sparky, come. Sparky comes racing over to you. You grab him, put the leash on the dog, clip, and you walk him back to the car. Time to go home. What you don't realize is that you just punished your dog, right? Because if you think about it, your dog was free, your dog was off leash, your dog was cruising around, having a great time. They come to you and you ended it. Grabbed the dog, put him on leash, took their freedom away. Now, next time you go someplace to let your dog off leash, you let them off leash, the dog's cruising around, you say come, and now your dog's like, I'm not going back to that guy. That's the guy that takes away all my fun. That's the guy that takes away my freedom. So this is where it can become a big problem, where you don't even realize that we punish the behavior. And this is why you have to understand reinforcement and punishment. As much as a lot of people, a lot of dog trainings, a lot of dog training organizations will tell you punishment, do not ever use punishment, don't even talk about it. And you really need to understand how it works, okay? Punishment stops behaviors, and it stops behaviors whether you meant it or you didn't mean to. The same thing with reinforcement. Reinforcement, there's intentional reinforcement, there's unintentional reinforcement. You see this a lot. You go into a vet's office and the dog's barking, right? The owner's waiting to be seen by the vet, so she's sitting in the front office, the dog's barking, and the owner's going, no, it's okay, Fluffy. Stop barking, stop barking. He's a nice man. Those are nice puppies. And the dog's barking, but what's the person doing? They're unintentionally reinforcing the barking. If you want to understand dog training, you have to understand reinforcement and punishment. Even if you don't like the thought of punishment, it is a part of the process. When it comes to teach your dog to come to you, you have to make sure you don't unintentionally punish your dog or intentionally punish the dog. So be aware of that. You can learn more about reinforcement and punishment by watching this channel. You may want to subscribe before you leave, but it's really important that you understand reinforcement and punishment. Okay, so the next tip, this is going to seem like a basic tip, and it is a basic tip, and you've heard this before, but a couple things I want you to understand, and that's to use high-powered treats, right? Now, some people think when it comes to a high-powered treat that it's, give the dog a milk bone or their kibble or, these crunchy treats made out of wheat, something like that. And what you have to understand is that a high-powered treat is something that your dog really, really wants, okay? So that may be, maybe a piece of cheese, maybe a little piece of hot dog, maybe some liver treats. At our school, we like to use the freeze-dried liver. Most dogs love it, but you have to use something that your dog really wants. The last tip, we talked about punishment, how you may unintentionally punish your dog. And now we're talking about reinforcement. So when the dog comes to you, you want to reinforce that behavior by giving them something that they really want. So if your dog's turned their nose up to it and they say, maybe you need to try a different treat. Or maybe your dog doesn't have a strong food drive because you free feed. You leave food out for the dog all the time. And if you want to train your dog, if you want your dog to give you a really good response, you want to increase your dog's desire. And you do that by making sure they don't always have access to these things. They shouldn't have access to food all day long. They should have access to food when you give it to them. Same thing with toys. A lot of times I'll try to increase the dog's desire to play with toys by making sure that the toy comes out when I'm around. So especially Tug. Tug is a game that's played just with me. They don't get access to that Tug toy except for when I bring it out. Tug game becomes a very high power reward, and I can use it to improve my dog's recall. Because often dogs that have a strong desire to play tug and chase balls, they'd rather have that than food. Right? They'd rather chase the ball than get a piece of food, or play tug than get a piece of food. So you want to try to use as much as you can to use positive reinforcement to get those behaviors to occur. The thing you have to understand about positive reinforcement is that it has its limitations. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next tip. This tip is not going to make some people happy, but I gotta be straight up honest with you, okay? And what you have to understand is that positive reinforcement has its limitations. It does not mean that I don't use positive reinforcement. If you were to come to my school, you would see in every class we're using tons of positive reinforcement. We use praise and toys and rewards to increase the dog's behavior. The thing you have to understand is that positive reinforcement is not going to solve all your dog's recall problems. If that did, then you wouldn't need to watch this video. So, for example, you have a little Jack Russell Terrier. Somebody opens the front door. Jack Russell runs out the door, sees a squirrel, starts running for the tree. You're in the background. You have hot dogs. You're shaking the box of cookies. You got cheese, right? Jack Russell doesn't care. Does not care about that stuff because the positive reinforcement of chasing a critter a squirrel, a raccoon, or something is way stronger than anything you could ever offer. Sorry, it's just the way it is, and that's the way it is with a lot of dogs. Dogs in the backyard, and you're offering all kinds of good stuff, and the dog's sitting there looking at you going, I don't really care. I don't want to give up my freedom right now to come to you and go in the house. So if food could solve every training problem, then that's all we would need to use. But sometimes you need to do other things. And you have to understand that positive reinforcement is great. And if you have a dog that's got a strong food drive, strong desire to chase balls and play with tug, then it's going to make it easier to train your dog. You do have to understand, and I know some people watching this video, the dog doesn't care about treats, doesn't care about toys. Right? You have to understand positive reinforcement for what it is. Try to use positive reinforcement for everything that we teach the dog. Always, always, always. Our dogs just are not going to respond. In those situations, we have to use different techniques and tactics and stuff like that to get the dog to respond to the command. Because there's one thing you have to understand about dog training: the dog has to live on your terms. They can't live on their terms. They can't. They have to live on your terms. You live on your dog's terms. First, you're going to get frustrated. Frustrating living on the dog's terms. And if you're chasing the dog around, if you can't let your dog off leash because you know you're gonna have to chase them, and if your dog does get out the front door and you have to chase them, that's frustrating, right? Frustrating having to chase a dog, not to mention scary. The second thing is, if you're not frustrated with your dog, the second thing is dangerous for your dog to live on their terms and not yours. Think about it. You let the dog out, you say come, dog's terms are, I'm gonna ignore the owner, just do what I want. Your terms are, come right back to me. If the dog's living on their terms, and they're loose, dangerous, lost, hit, killed. That's why a dog has to live on our terms. And a lot of people don't like that. But again, I work with a lot of dog owners every week, and I'd say 60 to 70% of the dogs that I work with, the dog, especially if it's a lab, the dog likes to counter surf. They like to jump on the counter and eat food, find anything on there and grab it. Not always food, but they'll grab glasses, TV remote, they'll grab, the pizza that they just brought home. And so you think, well, yeah, that's frustrating, but it's not really dangerous. But it is dangerous. It's always frustrating and dangerous if the dog lives on their terms. Because you come home, you put that giant cheeseburger on the counter and your dog eats it, now you're very frustrated. But if there's a big bowl of chocolates and your dog jumps up and eats those chocolates, now it's dangerous for the dog. So this is why the dog has to live on our terms. Foundation for all my training, on your terms. This is what you have to understand. The dog needs to learn to come back to you every time you say come. Sometimes you're going to have to use different techniques than just food. Because if that's all you needed, I wouldn't need to make this video. I would just say, yep, just call your dog, give him a treat. Done. That's not the case. So thanks again for watching. Have a great day.